What's up, Transformers fans? Welcome to week 18 of Moonbase 84's year-long celebration of 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots. This week, we are concluding our look at the Transformers Prime Rage of the Dinobots comic by IDW. In case you missed the videos, if you want to check out the first two of them covering this comic, you can find them in our 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots playlist. To recap what's happened in the story so far, the Dinobots have remained on Cybertron, fending off the Decepticons while other Autobots flee the fallen planet. Ultra Magnus' ship was shot down, and the Dinobots went to investigate the crash site, where they were attacked by a Predacon who abducted Swoop. It's revealed that the Predacon is a member of a group called the Forged, who are led by a bot named Sir Cat, who in turn happen to be experiments of Shockwave. Sir Cat and the Forged now have both Swoop and Magnus and await the arrival of their master Shockwave to retrieve them so he can conduct more of his heinous experiments. The Dinobots attack the Forged base, which is also a prison. Fighting through the prison's guards, they manage to free all of the Autobot prisoners as well as Ultra Magnus. Making their way to the roof of the prison along with Magnus, they are greeted by Sir Cat. Grimlock demands that Swoop be returned to them, and Sir Cat grants him his wish. With a gesture of Sir Cat's arm, Swoop flies on the scene, proclaiming, "All hail Shockwave." He is now under the mad scientist's control. Here we pick up the story still on the prison roof. Swoop flies down and lands at Sir Cat's side, and we see more of the Forged have arrived as well. Sir Cat reveals that she has reinforced Shockwave's original programming on Swoop to turn him to the side of the Forged. Also of note, I believe during this dialogue is the first time that Sir Cat is referred to as a female, so if I referred to her as a male in the earlier videos, that's my mistake. Ignoring the other Dinobots and Magnus's protest, Grimlock offers Sir Cat a deal. Instead of an all-out fight between the two sides, Grimlock challenges Sir Cat to a one-on-one battle. If he wins, Sir Cat fixes Swoop and frees him. If he loses, Grimlock and the others will surrender and undergo the reprogramming. This is a very gutsy offer. Grimlock's offer highlights a few things. Number one, what he's willing to do for his fellow Dinobots and his responsibility as the leader of the team. And two, how his anger and arrogance can fuel rash choices. And of course, we also can't have an Ultra Magnus in a story who isn't a douche and tells Grim that Swoop is lost and they have to round up the other escaping Autobots and bail. Grimlock cuts him off and says that this is Dinobot business, which I absolutely love. It also showcases again how the Dinobots feel that they are now something different than the Autobots. It's also pretty cool because technically Ultra Magnus is the ranking officer and Grimlock shuts him down without hesitation. To Grimlock, his men are more important than an idiot commander's orders. Even though Sir Cat points out that the Dinobots and Magnus and the other Autobots are vastly outnumbered, she accepts the challenge. The Dinobots form a ring of fire around the two combatants. Grimlock quickly discovers that Sir Cat is a formidable foe. He notes to himself that she's fast and uses her tail as an advantageous weapon. As Grimlock fends her off and attempts to formulate a winning strategy, Sir Cat goads him to transform into the form that their master gave them. Grimlock fights against his anger, fearing that if he transforms into T-Rex mode, he will lose all control of himself and his rage will destroy both friend and foe. But, as you've probably guessed, Grimlock can't control the fury boiling inside him. Losing himself to his rage, he transforms into T-Rex mode, and in his fury, he quickly overcomes Sir Cat. As she lies on the ground with Grimlock looming over her, ready to strike the final blow, Sir Cat says that Grimlock is their greatest achievement, and it would be an honor to fall to him. Before Grimlock can strike, Swoop soars in to Sir Cat's aid, still suffering from his reprogramming. Grimlock tosses him to the ground. Swoop starts proclaiming, "All hail." Then, coming to his senses, Swoop Grimlock questions, "Grimlock?" As Grimlock moves to attack Swoop, the other Dinobots plead with him to regain control and transform back to robot mode. As Grimlock pauses to contemplate his comrades' pleas, Sir Cat recovers and attacks him again, but to no avail. Standing over her once again, Grimlock roars, "Me Grimlock, me king." With their leader down, the other Forge troopers say they will honor the agreement, and they are all free to go with no opposition. After struggling a bit, Grimlock manages to change back to bot mode. The beating that Grimlock gave to Swoop also somehow reverses the effects of Sir Cat's programming. Here I have to say that I'm not a fan of this. It's just too convenient. But seeing how this series is only 4 issues, I can see why they did this. The writer had to get Swoop back to normal and couldn't spend a lot of time in the story to do so. The Dinobots, along with Magnus and the other Autobots, start scaling down the side of the prison, making their escape. But Sir Cat isn't quite done yet. She flies in dragon mode, scooping up Grimlock while the other Dinobots fire at her to bring her down. She calls them all pathetic and says after she rips Grimlock apart, she'll be back to finish them all. Swoop has had enough of Sir Cat. Transforming into Pteranodon mode, he knocks her out of the sky and then dives in to grab Grimlock. Crashing to the ground, Sir Cat struggles to get back up while cursing the Autobots. Driving his sword through her head, Grimlock says that they're more than Autobots, they're Dinobots, ending Sir Cat once and for all. A voice from behind Grimlock praises him, saying that Grimlock's killing blow was a fitting resolution and that Grimlock has made him very proud. Turning to face the voice, Grimlock is met by none other than Shockwave. Shockwave stands before the Dinobots and Magnus. He tells them at long last they are reunited and that he has come to complete the work that he started on them. Grimlock immediately orders them to attack the mad scientist. As they do, Shockwave seems pleased. He says they are attacking without thinking, attacking on instinct, and their change from Autobot to Beast is almost complete. As the Dinobots and Magnus pour on the attack, Shockwave puts up a force field to shield himself from their laser fire. Having enough of the altercation and saying he realizes that he has more work to do on them, Shockwave detonates an EMP on the group. We then see Grimlock waking up and finding himself strapped down to a table. Shockwave looms over him, saying that Grimlock is once again in his lab. Grimlock demands to know about the other Dinobots and Magnus. Shockwave affirms that he has them, but they aren't important. He tells Grimlock that the other Dinobots were just a way to have specimens to experiment on to perfect his masterpiece, and Grimlock is that masterpiece. Shockwave also tells Grimlock that initially he had thought that combining sentience with beasts that he discovered on a distant planet would create the perfect soldier, but he was wrong. He realized that only the beast was needed, and he plans to wipe Grimlock of all sentience. Focus then shifts to Magnus and the other Dinobots. We see that they are in a holding cell in Shockwave's lair. While saying that they are sick of prisons, the Dinobots notice how quiet Magnus has been and ask if he's thinking of an escape plan. Magnus carries a concerned look on his face and he says no, he's thinking of why Grimlock isn't in the cell with them. We then move back to Shockwave experimenting on Grim, and I know it's a comic with fictional alien robots, but every time there has been a scene like this in the book, it disturbs me, which means that the writer and artist have done a good job setting the tone for the story. Shockwave asks Grim how much of himself he remembers, and Grimlock thinks to himself, everything, and we get flashbacks of Grimlock's first ordeal and escape from Shockwave. Back in the holding cell, Magnus and the Dinobots come up with a ruse to trick their guards to lower the force field to the cell so they can bust through the wall in Dino mode. Swinging once again to the lab, Shockwave's heinous work on Grimlock is almost complete. Grimlock is struggling to resist the effects of the experiments that are impeding his thoughts and speech. Shockwave is about to install the last component into Grimlock that will turn him into a pure beast forever, but is interrupted by the sounds of the Dinobots hurling themselves at the lab's walls in Dino mode to bust through and save Grim. Crashing through the wall just in time, the Dinobots succeed in breaking through, hurling Shockwave away from Grimlock in the process. They overwhelm Shockwave, and in a fitting end to the mad scientist, they hold him down and rip him apart. Or so they thought. Freeing Grimlock, who seems to be slowly recovering because Shockwave's work wasn't completed, they are greeted by a hologram of Shockwave that tells them that they only defeated one of his many drones and that one day they will truly meet again. After making their way out of the lab, we then find the Dinobots and Magnus about to board a ship to leave Cybertron, where Grimlock tells Magnus that they are staying on the planet. There are still other Autobots on Cybertron that need help, and they still have to deal with Shockwave. In the last scene of the book, we see Magnus' ship leaving the planet. Grimlock's inner thoughts saying, "We all know the story. The Autobots fought Decepticons. Cybertron lost. The end. But a lot can happen after the end." Which is a cool way to end the book, because that inner dialogue is how the book opened. So this brings everything full circle, meaning there never truly is an end. On the bottom of the page, it also says the Dinobots' adventures continue in the Transformers Prime Beast Hunters comic, which we will cover down the road. For next week's episode, we're shifting back to toys though. So that concludes our coverage of IDW's Transformers Rage of the Dinobots comic. Overall, I really do like this story, and as I've said before, while not mind-blowing, I think the art is good, but has some messy action scenes where it can be hard to tell what's going on. Another thing that the art did well, it did a good job of mixing the distinct designs of Transformers Prime and the Fall of Cybertron game so that they looked like they all belonged together. Story-wise, I wish that there were more issues. More issues would have let the writer dive into the other Dinobots more, because while they do have their moments, this story is definitely a Grimlock story, which isn't a bad thing, but I feel like the others take too much of a backseat. More issues would also have let us know more about the effects of the experiments on all of the Dinobots, because besides Dino modes, they don't seem to have suffered like Grimlock has. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode celebrating 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots, and until next time, thanks for docking.